All right, man. So you know, you don't have to look at camera. You can look at me and talk, or you don't.
Should I take the shades off, or?
I like the shades.
Okay.
Or if you ever want to take them off in the middle, that's fine.
Okay.
So when did you meet Freddy Toscano? When was it? Tell me about the Rubots, really briefly. That you met him. That you met him back then.
Yeah. Okay.
You can say I was in the Left Banke. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I like that aspect. If you want to include that, I might put that in the title anyway. You're lower third.
Okay. You're rolling? Just let me know.
I'm rolling. Go for it.
Back in the 60s, hi, I'm Tom Finn. Back in the 60s, I was in a band called the Left Banke. And we sold a couple of million records. Walk Away Renee was one of them, and Pretty Ballerina was another. And our managers back then were Roger Rubenstein and Billy Ottinger, and it was called Rubot Management. And we took on a few bands. One of them was the Chain Reaction, other than the Left Banke to manage, you know. Another was Mr. Flood's Party, and Freddy was a member of Mr. Flood's Party. I think he was a percussionist, Freddy Toscano, and I got to know him then. And he's a nice guy, very nice guy. He used to wear those impeccable pressed white pants, typical Italian guy, you know, good looking, you know, with the white pants and the turquoise jewelry. You had to be there. In any case, the other band, the Chain Reaction, the leader of that band was Steve Tallarico, another Italian kid, and he later became Steve Tyler from Aerosmith. So we actually launched the career of Aerosmith there. Funny, talented Italian guys. I was only half Italian, so I only made it halfway, I guess. Anyway, so that's where I met Freddy, and then...
What do you remember about Floods? What was Floods like? It was like kind of a psychedelic rock band, right?
Yeah, there was this guy, Jay something or other. He had a sort of nice vibrato voice, and there was a lot of guys in that group. It was about 7 or 8 of them. And I don't know, I didn't think they had a hit sound. I thought they were just like, you know, I was coming from like a Beatles type of like mod or Stones background, and you know, they were a little too Jay and the American-ish type of band for me, you know. But I liked Freddy a lot. He was one of the guys I liked. Another guy was Mike Corbett, who was in that group. I liked him too. And but no, we won't talk about him because he has nothing to do with Freddy really that much.
Right, Jay Hirsch was the other guy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, Jay Hirsch.
Yep.
So for all you people watching this in theaters, eat your heart out. You can't smoke, right? So I'm gonna smoke for you. Anyway, I met Freddy later on, just by chance at Heartbreak. After the Left Banke broke up, I wanted to discover, you know, where the Beatles learned what they learned, you know, where the Beatles get it, you know. Where the Stones get it, you know, and so it led me to the 50s. And so I went and did a lot of research on the 50s because I felt that a lot of the bands from the 60s were missing that certain standalone, you know, sort of gutsy, rugged individualist, I can make it on my own type of thing. And that's how I was feeling when the Left Banke broke up. So I turned to the 50s and Elvis and studying, and went past Elvis and see how the black music influenced Elvis. And so this is not about me, it's about Freddy. So I developed an interest in the 50s. And so I really got into it, and I started playing with 50s bands and rockabilly bands. And I somehow ran into Freddy at Heartbreak because they asked me to be the DJ at Heartbreak because I had all these 50s records, and you know, one guy thought it would be great if I could come in and put my 2 cents into Heartbreak, you know. And so I was going to make it a 50s thing. It wasn't going to be a 50s thing originally. It was going to be a disco. And so I talked them into being a 50s club. And so... and
that was really Sunday nights, right?
Yeah, it was Sunday nights. Because the Mafia guys that owned the place, they didn't want to take a chance like that, you know, with 50s. They wanted to have a disco. But when they saw, you know, the type of people that I was inviting, you know, like dressed up like the 50s, parking their cars out front. And it just created this whole, like, knock your eyes out, like, thing. You know, Robert Gordon would come down, the Stray Cats would come down, and all these superstars would come down. And then Freddie came in, and actually I met Freddie before that, I should say. But when, yeah, let's back up.
Slide a little closer to me. That sun's really hot.
Okay.
That's it. That's much better. Let me just adjust the light. That's much better, man. So, all right, so do you remember where that was, where you met him at? Like pre-Heartbreak?
No.
You don't?
No, I met him somewhere on the 50s trail, that's all I can tell you.
Okay. When you got reacquainted with him at Heartbreak, you knew that he was doing music.
Yeah, I was in his band.
How did that happen?
I couldn't tell you. You know, drugs, whatever it was, I just don't remember.
Was it fun playing in No Frills with him?
Oh, great, yeah.
You guys seem to have like an all-star lineup. Tell me about that.
Well, we had Rock Roll on the drums, really cool guy. He was in a group from Buzz and the Flyers that were like a 50s rockabilly group. You know, they were great. They were just fabulous. And I played bass, and, you know, that was my instrument. And Freddie was the lead singer, and Jimmy Kelly on lead guitar. That was the band.
Okay, how long were you in No Frills about?
About a year and a half.
And had you played any rockabilly stuff? Were you playing that stuff? I know you were heavily interested in it. But
Yeah, I was.
You were active in other bands.
Yeah, I played with Rockin' Rob Stoner, who was playing with Robert Gordon. He was Robert Gordon's bass player, and he started his own band, and I was with him for about a year. You know, I was hell-bent to become like a 50s style musician, you know. And when I say 50s style, I mean, you know, like not, boom, boom, dum, dum, not that, you know, but, you know, really like Gene Vincent and, you know, really cool cat stuff, you know, like rockabilly, you know.
Eddie Cochran, right?
Yeah.
Now, was Freddie like really like he was a true 50s guy, right?
Yeah.
Tell me that and maybe just expound on that a little bit. Like.
Well, Freddie was older than me, you know. I'm like 60 now, so back then I was in my mid-30s. And Freddie must have been in his early 40s or something like that.
And you knew that he had grown up in Brooklyn, singing under the subway. You knew that he saw all these bands play at the Brooklyn Paramount.
I did too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You from Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I didn't go to the Paramount, I went to the Brooklyn Fox, but I was in a doo-wop group in Brooklyn for about 3 or 4 years called the Castells. So we had that in common.
Why did you, I need you to physically tell me that that you suggested Freddie for the hosting job at Heartbreak.
I suggested Freddie as the host for the Heartbreak.
Say that one more time, Tom.
I suggested Freddy Frogs to be the host at Heartbreak.
And why?
Why? Because Freddie was a very lovable guy. He knew a lot of people. Everybody loved him. He was such a lovely guy, such a social person. And his job as host was to give people drink tickets, you know, invite them down, you know, just schmooze with people, and he was great at it, you know. And, you know, he knew everybody too, you know, and everybody loved him. So Heartbreak was packed with like 50s loving, you know, retro 50s people, you know. And on a Sunday night at Heartbreak, that was the rockabilly scene in New York in the 80s. It was right there, you know. And everybody all over New York and from all over the world came to see it too. Andy Warhol, Diana Ross, David Bowie, Bono, everybody. I mean, everybody packed into that club to see 50s night at Heartbreak on Sunday night.
And tell me that you were spinning too then, so I have that on.
Yeah, I was the DJ. Yeah. I knew a lot about 50s music, you know, because you got to remember, I was in the Left Banke in the 60s, and we were a popular recording group, and you know, all throughout my formative years, I mean, I, you know, knew what was going on in the 50s from just listening to the radio and, you know, going to the Brooklyn Fox, going to the Paramount, seeing those shows.
Where are we going?
And so, you know, I was like perfect for it. And it was just like, you know, when Heartbreak hit, it was that time when all of the elements came together, like, and a lot of people were trying to relive their youth, and their youth was 50s at that time. Like, whereas today, there, you know, it would be people's retro thing of young people today would be the 80s or in the 90s. You know, back then in the 80s, it was the 50s or the 60s.
Where everything derived from.
Yeah.
For you guys. Yeah. All right. So as far as you know, Freddy's run was not as long as I thought it was. So,
No.
So how long was his run there, to your knowledge, and tie it into how long your run was?
Okay. Freddy was at Heartbreak, I would say, from 1982, summer of 82, and I quit in 83, sort of summer of 83. I was there for a year, and I got bent out of shape, and I just couldn't spin anymore. That's when Dina took my spot there and went full time. And so Freddy must have continued there for a little while, but I don't think so. I don't think he was there much longer than I was. So that would be about a year. He might have stayed a little longer that I didn't know about, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
How crazy was that scene?
In what regard?
It's the partying. The partying aspect of it.
Well, believe it or not, it was a lot of good, clean fun because those 50s kids were just clean as a whistle. They weren't drug takers. They weren't. They were just kids. They were all in their early teens, and I mean, you know, 18, 19 years old. And that's what made it so great because the 50s were like people in their youth making that music, you know, and you know, so when you think back on the 50s today, you see these guys that weigh 1,000 pounds running out on the stage, you know. That's not the way it was in the 50s. In the 50s, they were skinny and they had a lot of energy, and that's where the action was. And so when the retro movement came, they were all young and skinny, and and it was like you couldn't believe your eyes. It was like, no, this isn't the 50s. Yes, it is, you know. But it wasn't nostalgia. It was more like, how could it be nostalgia for those kids, you know? They weren't even alive.
Right, so kind of everything that went along with that scene really carried over, like as far as, as far as just like how they dressed, how they conducted themselves.
They were
a politeness, right?
Right down to their underwear. They were 50s. I mean, the girls wore crinolines. I mean, and not like with poodle skirts. I'm talking about they spent their lives in thrift shops, you know, looking for clothing and having their hair done all day long, the makeup. And this one dude, this black guy, like Larry, he was a champion jitterbug dancer. And we had him come out and do a couple of shows a night with some of the girls. He'd throw them in the air and everything. It was great. And everybody, you know, they had the pompadours, and it was like the Stray Cats were hanging around there, you know, and they just had a big hit record, you know, and it was like the 50s were alive again, almost.
And I guess the celebrities got attracted to that scene because why? Like, what was it? Was just such a fun hang, or what was it?
Yeah.
Everyone wanted.
Well, that's where I made it as a DJ because Steve Rubell from Studio 54 came in and saw me there, and he used to bring me over to studio where I did some guest sets late at night because he just loved the scene at Heartbreak. I mean, everybody, like I said, every celebrity in the world was there. Teddy Kennedy hung out. I knew why he wasn't president because I could see, you know, what he was doing there, you know. Stoned out of his mind, you know. With two women, one here and one there. It's crazy, you know, but the kids themselves, they were clean as a whistle. Not one of them did drugs or anything, you know.
It's pure, this is pure, like, love for the 50s.
Love for the 50s, yeah.
Now, do you have anything to say about maybe looking back at, like, say, Freddy's life, maybe why he didn't make it? Like, maybe...
Yeah, I know why.
Some people thought he could have. And be honest. What,
yeah, no, he didn't, you know, he didn't get it, really. I mean, he was a beautiful person, don't get me wrong. He wasn't like, you mean make it like with a 50s style? Is that what you mean?
Just reach that level of fame where he would have sold. Was it because he was stuck in the 50s? Or?
Yeah, you know, you can't make it in the 50s bag. Look, Robert Gordon didn't make it. You know, the Stray Cats made it briefly. They had 2 hits or 1 hit, and that was it, you know. You know, it never caught on, you know, and It never was a big national craze.
Yeah, and you think that's the main reason why?
Yeah.
Let's wait for that siren for a second. It's going to be distracting. So it wasn't anything that Freddy. Because let me just wait out and I'll just continue. I mean, I happen to know this about Fred, that he really wasn't into money, and he wasn't into. I don't know if he was into playing the game. Like, as far as you know, did he avoid it? Did he want it, or was he just? Were other things more important to him?
Other things were more important to him. He was more like, no frills. Like, that says it all. Hey, you're a person, I'm a person. Hey, we're gonna dance tonight. We're gonna rock and sing. It wasn't about publicity and look who's a star and who isn't and who's got a press agent and who doesn't. Yeah. It wasn't about anything like that for Freddie. I knew he wasn't going to make it. As a matter of fact, a couple of people came down to one of the gigs one night, and I wanted them to see me in the band. And they said to me, Tom, what are you doing here? What do you do? You don't belong here. You're a fucking songwriter. You could have hit records. What are you doing in this scene? You don't belong here. It was a launching pad for people. One guy, Tommy Burns, who played with him, ended up with Billy Joel playing guitar. But nobody made it out of that scene.
And you think Freddie was always okay with that?
Yeah, he was.
And what does that say about his character?
He was a beautiful guy. That's all I can say about Freddie. I know other people like him. This guy who just passed away recently, Patrick Stigliani, same thing. He was just a guy who had a memorial service. Everybody came. They just loved him because he took the time to talk to people, to listen to what they were saying. He was a wonderful guy. Like the girls loved him. He laughed. He listened to you. He wasn't about himself. His personality was fabulous, and people loved him for himself. That's why.
And it's no wonder that celebs were comfortable around him, right? Because he made everyone feel comfortable, right?
Yeah, like Cher came in there, and he was the host one night, and she met the bagel maker there. And Freddie made them comfortable, made Cher comfortable, let her have the use of the private office, because people were gawking at her or whatever, Yeah. Cher got comfortable. She started hanging around with a couple of Freddie's friends, and she ended up practically marrying that guy, Rob Camilletti,
And I know that Freddie hung out with Matt Dillon for years, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, just one more. I mean, do you have any remembrance of...
I just knew they were friends. Matt Dillon always had a nice thing to say about Freddie when I met him later.
And, okay, so tell me what happened. So you were gonna tell me something that happened with you and Freddie, and if you feel like sharing it or getting it out, that's cool.
No.
If it's good,
I hadn't seen Freddie in about 25 years, and I think the reason is because I had said or did a couple of things when I was drunk or stoned back then that offended him, and he got really mad at me, and he was right to, And so our friendship sort of like petered off, and but I did make my amends to him, and I apologized, and so he said, I accept your apology if you find this guy Bob Lobie and help him. And so I found Bob Lobie, and I helped him, and found him a place to stay, and did a couple of things for him and whatever. But I just still felt that part of my life was over, the no frills, the hanging and jamming. Now I was a DJ, and I was into a different world now. I was into, nightclubs, and there no more 50's music now, and now it was like all about big parties, and so I didn't, I sort of dropped out of that whole scene.
And I guess that gave you the time to reflect and actually think